What's up, everybody? This is John with Archer Film. All right, I just saw Speak No Evil, the James Watkins remake starring James McAvoy. So I really dig this filmmaker. I actually saw his movie in 2008. If you haven't seen Eden Lake, check that horror movie out. Stars Kelly Riley and, at the time, unknown Michael Fassbender. It kind of starts like a lot of movies in the early to mid 2000s where it's like a suburban couple dealing with either a home invasion, like in Them, inside, this woman with, who is, her house gets broken into by this deranged person. There was a lot of movies at that time where it was like just normal people and, people messing with them, right? It's kind of a genre in and of itself, I think. But Eden Lake had this unbelievable twist. So it's Kelly Riley and Michael Fassbender go on a little vacation to this quarry, and these young kids, like young teenagers, start coming there, and they're making all this noise and kind of being confrontational. And it turns into this sort of cat and mouse game. The horror really gets ratcheted up, but the ending is where this movie really hits. By the time you get to the ending and the kind of twist, you're like, oh, man. And it's James Watkins making a statement about the horror that we had just seen. And it's not just your average horror story. It has meaning at the end, and it's fantastic. So check out that movie, Eden Lake. I loved it. So back to Speak No Evil. Now, I have not seen the original version. I do need to check it out, though, because I really like this remake. I found myself smiling the entire time because of how this film slowly ratcheted up the tension, and also James McAvoy's great performance. All the performances are really good. Mackenzie Davis, I've liked her ever since the Black Mirror episode San Junipero, which is one of the best. But also James Watkins directed an episode of Black Mirror, and it's also one of the best. It's called Shut Up and Dance. If you haven't seen San Junipero and Shut Up and Dance, the two Black Mirror episodes, you got to check them out. They're two of the best. So go see those right now and then come back to this. All right, so Speak No Evil. It's a very basic setup. A couple on vacation in Italy meets another couple. They both have kids. They decide to hang out a little bit further, and they do. And there's clearly something with Scoot McNairy's character, who he kind of sees James McAvoy's masculinity and longs for it. There's even a moment at the beginning where he sees him order a beer, and he's like, asks Mackenzie Davis, his wife, hey, do you want to have a beer? And she's like, no, but you can. And he's like, no, and you just kind of see him slink away. Right off the bat, we get a sense of who Scoot McNairy is. He's this sort of, cuckolded male, that's kind of wimpy, modern man sort of thing, which is fine. And then James McAvoy is a super masculine. He's big. He's all jacked up, and he does what he wants, and that's interesting to me. But I'm not going to get too much into spoilers. I just want to tell you that, this movie is really good. The tension is really good. And in fact, the first 40 minutes of this film, as it sort of builds and builds and builds, and the whole, the relationship between the two couples, I kind of dug that almost more than the horror. I could have watched an entire movie about just the differences in these couples and the tension between them. It was very interesting to me. But once the horror does start, it becomes really intense. And obviously we see the sort of peril of this feminized male character who just can't even make a decision for himself, let alone fight for things that he knows is right. And I think it's an indictment on sort of modern males and how we've been sort of emasculated. I say we because I'm a male, but I am not emasculated. Anyway, so we see that, and it's interesting because McAvoy is this overly sort of masculine guy. And what's interesting about all of that is, like Eden Lake, by the time you get to the end, there's one thing that happens, one line of dialogue, and you're like, I get it. And it's fantastic. In fact, thematically, it's kind of similar to Eden Lake. But anyway, really good movie, really intense, good, great thriller. All right, I'll see you in the next one.